Hello, 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 hello. How is everybody? How is everybody of Fit and Well? Are we fit and well this evening? So excited to be here with you tonight talking all things anxiety. And I'm taking over for half an hour, I believe it to be. I can always talk for longer because I'm very good at talking, but I think I'm going to be here for half an hour. So get your questions ready. If you have any questions about anxiety, I am so happy to answer them. My name's Jessica Boston. I will put my name here so that you can know a little bit more about me and find out a little bit more about me if you're interested to know more. But I am a cognitive hypnotherapist. I work with mainly creative men and women to help them repurpose their subconscious mind. And the subconscious mind is the keeper of the answers and questions to how to resolve your anxiety issues. And I'm going to be taking you through that. I'm going to be giving you the kind of foundations of what to know about anxiety. So if you have anxiety, join me for this bit of time, and I'm so happy to answer you when you feel anxious first thing in the morning. Well, I'm going to go into, because that's quite specific, that is, tell you what, tell me a little bit more about how your anxiety presents yourself, because what I want to help you with is the attitude to dealing with anxiety as well is as important as what you can do in the moment, because there's two parts to dealing with it. There is what you can do moment to moment, and then what you are always doing long term to help you through it. So because you've got to think that you are essentially retraining your mind. You're retraining it out of the habits of thought that create anxiety. So there are short-term and long-term strategies. So why I would like to know a little bit more about how your anxiety presents to you in the morning. If you're there, Pets Radar, tell me a little bit more about how it comes to you, because this will be really helpful. And I think the more I can take you through what I do with my clients, the more you'll understand how you need to approach anxiety, because it's, as much as anything, anxiety is an approach. Dealing with anxiety is a long-term approach. So if you're there, go ahead and ask me. I would love to take you through it. And if anybody else has any questions in the meantime. Okay, so you wake up feeling anxious. Now, does your anxiety only come to you in the mornings, or does it present to you at any other time? Before I answer that, actually, I'm just going to take through, I find it hard to make decisions. Okay, wonderful. I will come back to that. I'll be with you in a minute about that. So I'm just going to take you through what anxiety is, because panicky and palpitations. Okay. I'll be coming back to all of that, because I'm sure there will be other people watching that feel a similar type of way. So first of all, what is anxiety? Because for anyone watching, I mean, we all hear anxiety. It's banded around all over the place. It's so common now for people to talk about it, more common than it's ever been. And it's one of those words that you hear so often, it can begin to lose its meaning, or we can begin to be confused about what it actually is. It's a feeling of unease. And the thing is, it varies so much from person to person. And this is an important part of the approach when dealing with anxiety, is because there are so many variations of it and your anxiety is personal to you. It's really important that you pay attention to how your anxiety presents, and that is the key to working through it, because the key to working through anxiety is really about understanding what your anxiety's intention is. Because anxiety, as much as we would love to think it's just this random cruel thing that happens to us, that's what most people tend to believe. They just think it's a punishment, or something they have to endure, something they have to suffer, something that is just going on with the way that their mind is. But anxiety came to you in a moment in time. You weren't born with anxiety. You would have lived through life, and at some point in time, a significant emotional event would have happened that would have made an impact, that would have marked the mind and said, okay, we need to now watch out for things that are of a similar vein. So when working through anxiety, you're essentially solving the mystery of how your mind came to this conclusion and came to the realization that it needed to protect you from something similar. And why I say all of this is, if your anxiety presents to you in the mornings, you've got a fear, you've got a palpitation, you've got a panicky sensation, the way that you're going to deal with this anxiety is to, first of all, this is important as well, divide and conquer. Because when we talk about anxiety, it's like we throw a blanket out and all anxieties that we might be suffering from become, do you think anxiety comes around that? I'll come back to that, thank you. We talk about anxiety like it's just one big blanket, like all my anxieties are the same. But actually, if we stopped and studied and we weren't afraid of our anxiety and we weren't afraid of our subconscious thinking, and we just approached it with the approach that I approach anxiety with, which is just something that we need to look at, something that needs to be dealt with. We just got to take action towards it. Then you can start to split your anxieties, to study them and to understand what they're really about, because they have information for you. The key is to listening to them and to understanding the mystery of when they come to you. So this is the first part of the approach in how to deal with anxiety, is you've got to study it. You've got to treat it like, instead of what most people do is they run away from their anxiety, and that creates more panic, because what the unconscious is thinking is, I'm trying to give you some information about something that I know to be dangerous because I've held on to this information. You were laughed out of a class at school and that really hurt. So we, the unconscious part of your thinking, held on to that information, and now every time your boss at work asks you to give a talk in front of everybody, we send that same message to you because we don't want you to be humiliated. But instead of listening, you panic and run away. So how are we going to communicate this to you? We're going to shout it louder. Now we're going to have to send some physical sensations. Now we're going to have to send cruel words that will slow you down. So this is how anxiety starts to worsen if you don't listen to it and sit with it and try and understand the information that it has for you. So this is really critical. So if you've got a pen and paper, or you've got somewhere you can write this down, the way to begin to deal with your anxiety is to sit with it and to listen to it and to understand what information it has for you. So let's say your anxiety comes to you every morning. Why is it in the mornings and not the evenings? Is there any physical sensation attached to it? And what does the physical sensation look like, feel like, sound like? So let's say every morning you wake up and you feel a heaviness in the chest and just a sort of feeling. Now, again, you don't have to use particularly sophisticated language when you're dealing with this, because this is dealing with the part of the mind that is sort of beyond language. It comprehends language, but you don't need to intellectualize it. In fact, the words anxiety, stress, worry, all of these are just words, and it would be more helpful if you tuned in and just tried to understand what connects this feeling, this sensation, this thought, and how far you're going back in your mind to the first time you ever experienced it. So let's do that now. Let's say we want to study the, I'm not sure if you're still with us, and I'll be coming back to other questions in a second. Let's say you've got this sensation in the mornings. Well, just tell me a little bit about that. So how long does it last? Are there any words that come with it? Are there any colours attached to it? Does it have a shape when it appears to you in your body? Does it have any other information for you? So the more you start to separate, divide and conquer, and you think, right, well, this anxiety, usually an hour or so it lasts about an hour. Now, were you able to answer any of the other questions that I had about whether or not it had a shape, a colour, no colours or shapes. Some people, that's just not the way their anxiety presents, but it would have information for you. It might have some words, might have some pictures attached, it might have some other information. Just a feeling of overwhelm and not knowing where to start. Okay. Yeah, well, so what I would suggest is, if that's what your anxiety is linked to, there would be a moment in your life, or maybe you grew up around somebody who constantly sort of fed the message into your mind that when things got too big, life becomes difficult, and maybe there's just a sort of feeling within you that you are not capable of doing what needs to be done. So it's studying what your unconscious mind needs to know about you that would allow it to stop this response completely and for good. So if it's a feeling of not knowing where to start, help your unconscious mind know where it is that you need to start. Okay, it sounds incredibly obvious and like but it's the conscious part of our thinking, the logical, rational bits of our thinking knows that we can do it, knows that we can start. It's the unconscious mind that would be stuck on a moment in time where it struggles to believe that you are going to be able to go to the next step, that is holding on to the memory and is keeping you in that moment in time. So there's a part of your thinking that needs to be updated and needs to come up to the present day. So it's a funny thought, because we think, well, surely all of me is living in 2020. But actually, all throughout the day, so I'm a hypnotherapist, I work with hypnosis and trance. And what's very misunderstood by the idea of trance is that people think trance is this kind of Alice in Wonderland, going through the rabbit hole and coming out the other side into another dimension kind of thing. But actually, we are all day long in and outs of different trances. So when you are in the trance of you not being able to do something, that is the trance of your anxiety. That is the trance of somewhere in your mind, your unconscious is holding on to a memory where it was a struggle for you to do the next thing, where it felt overwhelmed, where it felt like you were not going to be able to push through it. And it's prioritizing that information, and that information is coming to you often. So what would be really helpful for your unconscious mind and for your anxiety is to listen to things, or to come up with an affirmation of sorts, or something that helps your unconscious mind know that the future is going to be okay, that you are capable, you are resilient, you are strong, despite it being difficult. I know that we are living in we're probably sick and tired of hearing about uncertain times, but you have done it before and you will do it again. You have come up against adversity in your life and you will come up against adversity again, but you are more resilient than you are remembering at this moment. You are more strong and more capable than you are holding on to at this moment, and you are forgetting that information. And this is why the unconscious keeps reminding you of this message. This is why it keeps saying, I don't think we're going to be okay. I need to send you this response because I need you to take action and sort this out. And you're going, oof, it's a lot. Let me be. In fact, actually, you're just really stressing me out, because that's the other thing about the unconscious, is it doesn't see that this response is not particularly helpful. In fact, if we don't understand this response, it shuts us down. It just feels like someone's trying to mess with us, rather than this is the unconscious sending the alarm it has to get you to take action. So the key here to solving this anxiety is to help your unconscious know and internalize how capable and resilient you are. All of the times you've been strong, even if you don't fully believe it at this moment, prioritize that information, bring that to the forefront of your thinking, replay moments in your life where you were brilliant and you got through it, Is that clear for anybody else? What sort of affirmations might help? Make your affirmations really personal. Make them powerful to you. Make them things that you really resonate with. I would say, you can Google affirmations, but they might not be yours. So make them your own. Make them with words that you love. I am wonderful, capable, strong, brilliant, resourceful, resilient. These are the messages our unconscious wants us to know, that we are going to be okay in the future. Thank you so much. I don't know your name, We Are Pets Radar, but I really hope that was helpful, and I'm so happy to answer any other questions. I'm going to go back to I'll go back to Julia's and Leotard Man 78. Hello, Leotard Man. What a lovely leotard you are wearing in that picture. Do you think anxiety comes from lack of assurance or confidence in something? Absolutely, yes, like I've just said. Anxiety comes from the notion that we are not going to be okay. The unconscious reminder that we might be in danger, that we might not make it, that we might not survive, that something painful is pending because we have not... we are not living in the moment that we're living in now. We are stuck in a moment in our past. We're stuck as 13-year-old us being laughed at out of the classroom at school. And we're thinking that, if I speak in public, what if everybody laughs at me? Like that moment where it was so embarrassing and everybody laughed at me. And that's where the unconscious is going. That's where the trance is taking you back to. So that's why if you identify what is going on in the body, if you identify the mystery of your anxiety, and you can connect it to why it's doing that, there lies the key in what your subconscious mind needs to process to then be able to move through it. Does that make sense? Because that's really the key to anxiety. Now, the steps to doing that, what really helps is something like hypnosis. That's what I work with, meditating on those ideas that the unconscious mind needs to know. A lot of my clients have real problems with IBS when they're anxious. Can you explain the link there? Well, absolutely. The mind-body connection, our body is always responding to everything that goes on in our mind. We know it. Sometimes you get to the end of the day, and I'm sure as a tummy whisperer you would have a lot of information about this and know this very well, but you get to the end of the day and you're like, oh, why am I clenching? Why is my jaw so tight? Gosh, what's gone on today? And because we are carrying the emotion in our body, our thinking is creating everything in our reality. Our thoughts are the architecture of our universe. So if your thoughts are heavy, negative, painful, you'll find that at the end of the day, you're so tight and painful. And of course, your stomach is doing the same thing. If you're clenching all of the parts of your stomach, you're going to get to the end of the day where that is going to be affected by stress. So relaxing the body, relaxing the unconscious thinkings, processing the trauma that the unconscious mind is holding on to is critical, not just to a better life, but to better health, to everything, really. Our thoughts are the foundation of everything in our life. So yes, the link between IBS and anxiety is a very strong, powerful one. I don't know if I answered enough of what you wanted to know there, but I'm so happy to answer any other questions. Does anyone else have any other questions for me? Now's your time to ask me anything you've always wanted to know about anxiety. I'm here. I'm so happy to tell you anything that you want to know. So we've talked about dividing and conquering, the first step to understanding your anxiety. Thank you, Tummy Whisperer. The first step to understanding your anxiety is not to treat your anxiety like one big macro anxiety. Sometimes it is. Sometimes your anxiety is a collection of all of the feelings, all of the thoughts, and you've spent so long doing it that it's become, sometimes I ask clients about their anxiety and it's just become one big block. And it sounds weird and abstract, but that's the language of the unconscious, and that's the part of the thinking that we're talking to. So it can be abstract in conversation. And sometimes you are dealing with lots of little micro feelings, micro anxieties. So then you kind of have to deal with them one by one. So divide and conquer is my first bit of really important advice. Then I would say information, not definition. Treat your anxiety not as definition. People buy into the stories behind their anxiety and they let that dominate their life. They take it as truth. The anxiety presents to you and then they get this feeling and they go, oh, I get this anxiety because I'm an awful person. And then they believe the story about them being an awful person and they lead with that. Don't let your feelings dictate your life. It's just a feeling. It's just some information for you. It's not definition. It's something that the unconscious mind has got stuck on a moment in time and it's taking you back to a moment where it felt that way and it's trying to keep you away from things that would be similar. Why does anxiety make you feel like you can't cope with the day? Because it's designed to make you feel like you can't cope with the day. It wants you to retreat. It wants you to go home and lie down. It wants you to stop. Because the unconscious is saying, if you carry on doing what are certain people prone to anxiety? It depends on factors. It depends on whether or not you were, it's kind of a nature or nurture thing. But if you were brought up in a family where everybody was very anxious, where the first thing that everybody went to was, we can't do this, we're not going to be able to do this, then you're probably going to have learnt that behaviour and you are going to have internalised that, and that's going to be your go-to coping mechanism, and that's why it's going to feel like you can't cope with the day, because somewhere the unconscious believes that you can't, so it wants you to stop before something happens, what it believes will happen, which is that you'll shut down in some way, you'll get overexhausted, you'll get overwhelmed. It's trying to stop you, but it's not a truth. It's not going to actually, it's not the life or death situation. Anxiety is presented to us like it makes us feel like we want to die, because that's what the unconscious believes will happen if you don't retreat. It's the primitive part of our thinking. It is the caveman bit of our brain that, as social creatures, has held on to the notion that if you don't retreat, if you go out there in the world and make a fool out of yourself, because you did when you were 7, at gym class, you fell over and everybody thought you were silly, so it's holding on to that memory. So it's saying, if you go out there in the world and you repeat something like that, the same thing is going to happen, and we're going to lose all our friends, and if we lose all our friends, we're going to lose our job, we're going to lose our house, and then we're going to die. And that's what it sounds so, gosh, that's big and scary. That's what the unconscious thinks is going to happen, because that's the equation it's made to. The caveman brain is so terrified of social embarrassment because we're hardwired for that as social creatures. We love to connect. We're part of the tribe. If the tribe rejects us, we're going to die. That's what the unconscious still believes, when in fact, it could be a bit embarrassing, but you could move town. Everyone will forget that you fell over and no one would care, and it wouldn't be the big deal that your unconscious is holding on to. And so the best way to beat anxiety head on is the approach to anxiety, because there are lots of little things you can do. You can do breath work, you can ground yourself, you can remind yourself that you're buying into a story when you start to panic, that it's not a truth. But the best way, the long-term strategy for anxiety, is the way you approach it, is the realization that it's not fixed. You are not fixed, born, hardwired to have anxiety for life. That's not you. It's something that your unconscious mind has not worked through yet, and you can help it work through it by understanding what it is it hasn't worked through yet. Does that make sense? I believe I've got 6 minutes left. So happy to answer any other questions. I'm having a great old time over here. Please, please, please ask me your questions about anxiety. I would love to answer any that you have. Thank you for the thumbs up. Do you have any questions? Really, the best thing for anxiety is the way you approach it. don't be afraid of it. Don't run away from it. Like anything, once you know what you're dealing with, you can deal with it. But the key to anxiety is to understand it better, not just to say, I think nowadays, with it being so normal, everybody's just like, I've got anxiety. It's like they're talking about having something, you know, I've got food in the fridge, or I've got a hat. You know, it's just become so normal that people don't understand that you have to kind of break it down to be able to deal with it. You have to look at it to deal with it. Like any problem in the house, if your boiler stopped working, you'd have to go and have a look at the boiler and understand what's going on with it. You wouldn't run away from it and be like, oh, I hope the boiler doesn't explode. I'm just going to sit here and pray that it doesn't explode in the night, because that will give you more anxiety. I definitely wouldn't want to live like that. I'd just go, right, I'm going to go and have a look at the boiler, see what's going on. What are you making so much noise about? And then the boiler will give you the information that it has for you. That's the approach. You approach it like that, and then your anxiety will diminish, because the unconscious will know that it's been listened to and respected. Does that make sense? You've got to keep up the approach. It's not a one-day thing. It's not we just do this for a bit. It's a lifetime. As health and wellness, fit and wellness people, you know that you don't just go to the gym a couple of times and say, oh, that was nice. You've got to do it forever. You've got to, this is the approach to your mindset that you keep on up forever. When I'm stressed, a glass of wine is my go-to, but it doesn't really help with the anxiety though. Doesn't really help with the anxiety. No, sorry about that. You know, the odd glass of wine, you know, we better try my best to avoid it. I would say try your best to avoid it for a period of time if it's all right with you. Yeah, avoid it and see how it makes a difference. If you're having a moment in time where you've got more anxiety than usual, definitely pass it up. And if you revisit traumatic past events and stories, then what do you tell yourself? That is, you wait for the big questions 3 minutes before. So if you want to revisit traumatic past events and stories, I would say this is the time to call in the professional, aka me. You can send me a message and I will tell you how to do that safely, because you don't just want to be drudging up past events just to look at them, because you can also re-traumatise yourself. Now that's not to but you don't want to just spend hours and hours of a day just sort of poking at an old wound, not really knowing what you're doing in there. If you're revisiting, you're going back to help the unconscious heal and learn and make peace with a situation so that it can move on from it, not just to you know, have a look and because again, well, you know, there's so much I could say on this and so much I would love to say about this, but if you do want to work through unconscious pain and trauma, send me over a message. That's the next step. This is the sort of beginner stuff, and how to begin working with your anxiety is the approach. More than anything, 100 times out of 100, that is the advice I would give. Don't treat it like a quick fix. Treat it like you do as healthy, fit people that incorporate exercise into a way of life, that you do this every day. You didn't just go to the gym once and say that was enough for me. You do this all the time. This is your lifestyle, and this is how you approach anxiety. This is part of how you deal with life now. You don't run away from the things that are causing you anxiety. You look to it to understand the information that the anxiety has for you. That's the way to deal with anxiety, and know that long term that will have huge benefits over just a breathing technique, or not to say that those aren't incredibly powerful. I'm not saying anything other than, but the long-term fix is the way that you approach it, rather than treating it like something that you... And another last little thing to say before I finish up is be aware of how you talk about your anxiety. People say, I have anxiety. Like they say, I have a dog. I have a handbag that I really like. Be aware that you become protective about the things that you that you own, that you possess. So just think about the language that you use around your anxiety, whether or not you've started to get protective of it, possessive of it, whether or not you're really, really willing to let it go. And thank you so, so much, everybody, for joining tonight. I think, Maddie, is that, I think it was half an hour, wasn't it? I think it was, I'm pretty sure it was. Thank you so much. I'm so happy. One more question if anyone has it. If not, we'll call it an evening. And if you've got any questions, you can find me over at imjessicaboston.com. Oh, imjessicaboston.com. I'm Jessica Boston on Instagram, and I can answer anything else that you want to know about anxiety. Maybe there are things you're not ready to say here in front of everybody else, but you'd like some advice in quiet. But yes, don't run away from your anxiety. It has information, not definition. Thank you, lovelies, and have a wonderful evening, whatever's left of it, or morning or afternoon, wherever you are in the world. Wherever you are, I hope you are fit and well and enjoying life, and hopefully this has helped your anxiety. Remember, you are more strong, resilient, courageous than your unconscious mind prioritises. Please prioritise that information. That will diminish your anxiety. Good evening, good night.